Harmonie, First Edition, by Joseph Leo Hickey, published by Melodium House. Introductory information. This book contains a story about a fictional interracial couple from fictional iterations of the United States and South Africa. Harmonie, a South African political activist, was murdered on December 24, 2019. The murder was motivated by race and political opposition. A few months later, her husband Leafy was found dead in the United States in Chicago. The investigation is pending, but is presumed by many that the murder was motivated entirely by race. Both died for no reason. Racism is absurd. These poems are their words. We, the EFF, are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now. Julius Malema. With a kiss I die, Romeo and Juliet. I have overcome the world, Jesus Christ. CD number 3.
107.
Last night I had a dream. We were escaping from the wrath of the forest fires, hastening towards us. This morning, there was so much fear. The moment we heard the gunshots and we left our hotel room in the adrenaline rush. Now, as we sit hand in hand in the front seats of our car, we kiss our past goodbye forever. We drive through the streets of Durban for the last time. We live in a world so broken that the people who were assigned to fix it have left and taken their payment with them.
108. As I waited for the world to be judged, I sat in the boxcar. I closed my eyes and I believed that the memories I envisioned were still alive. When I first saw you, you were standing alone. We spoke for 15 minutes, and you told me about life in Durban. I told you about my plans for the future, how I would create art that the world would see and fall in love with. But these memories are interrupted by the lull movement of the incoming train. And now I have more dreams and nightmares that you are alive, but you are taken against your will, somewhere you never wanted to go. But then the memory flashes in again. We were walking through the streets of the city. She was spinning in my arms, dancing in the forest at night, smiling, laughing, like the galaxies far from here where there is no death. That these moments existed at all gives me peace even when they are gone and Harmonie has passed away. We had packed our bags together and left the airport and traveled to Norway the summer when we were married. A spell of darkness that falls over people when they are dreaming, when they are grieving, when the world moves on, and we stay stuck in the same motions, unable to move forward or backward. We sat at Starbucks together, drinking coffee. We made plans that transform our world. I painted a portrait of Harmonie, and it encapsulated her spirit. I hold it in my hands now and grasp onto it as I walk through the south side of Chicago, my home, where I feel the chemicals in my mind overflowing, wishing there was anything else I could do.
109. All the perfect, holy, and beautiful things, joy unfiltered and light uncreated, grace pouring down on me and lighting my path. We walked by the light of the torches on the beach at midnight, our hearts sealed forever. Our moments are inseparable from each other. We are dancing across the world, traversing through the night, separated and then walking blindly in the night. Until we replace the constitution of our hearts with a book of our own, we will be the signification of the dawn of a new and glorious era, when the whole world falls under the banner of the cross, becoming one family. And we will see the beauty and the art of simply falling in love, of desperate and lamenting songs about everything including joy. 110. Sometimes when we walk the path of life, we become lost. We stray from the straight path. I can imagine many people feel the same way. We come home from the night in the city. We are so very vulnerable. There is no part of me that has not touched your soul. We crave connection with the natural things in this life more than anything else. With the pattering rain outside, with the ghosts that follow our footsteps. Everywhere we go, we become believers in the things we never thought could exist. At the altar, we drink from the cup of our salvation. We forget what races we are when we become totally united to each other. The leaves cover the path. The shadow follows the light. We have been dreaming all through the night of crossing bridges we never built, of lifting the world out of the mud with us, leaving no one behind at all. I stand at the terminal of the airport, and then my surroundings change. And then we slowly grow used to the change, until we have cast out all transitional objects from our lives, when perfect fear casts out love. When there is no music but only books and routine, we are the disempowered. We are the disenfranchised. We are the ones whose voices will blend with every innocuous voice in the world. And then I will stand in a country that never listened to me. I will say no more words to this country because all my breath will be taken from me. And then we will walk through the shadow of these woods as the sun sets deeper in its place than it ever has. Each of us has taken a different road, and each of us has become lost and never reaches our destination. And then the voice of my leafy will be filled with so much anger that I will overthrow the world when he reads the words that I wrote at every political convention. We will walk through the tall grass, hands outstretched, faces drowning in the sunlight and bathing in it. I am here if you want me to be here, though I never wanted to be here. The doctors were barely able to remove the bullet from my shoulder after I'd fled for cover. I started writing a letter, and then I started singing the words, and each word poured from my pen with such poignancy and clarity the day after we were married. We stood hand in hand on the beach. The candles were all around us. The light from the candles mixed with the stars was enough to make us desire to break through from something beyond the way we look superficially, beyond the way others see us, to tell them we are something unique. 111. When you come looking for me, you'll find me where you are. I'll be in hell.
You've unleashed a demon onto the world. Gunshots. All of us getting shot. I'm on the other side of the parking lot, bleeding out from the wounds. The whole world will burn. You'll all be coming with me. I'm not heinous or cruel, just the truth. Rap songs blaring from my speakers. Death comes to us and the world is judged. All of you on the outside looking in. I can hear the angels cry. I can hear heaven fall away as we realize what we've lost. And then waste it all away. We understand what will happen now. We are filled with anger now, falling deeper, 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 spinning the revolver all around, about to take a shot, but now you'll be listening to the sound so loud, I'll be sitting on the bar stool, and then you hear it coming like a power tool.
With such violence, we overthrow the world. 112. When you are walking in circles, wondering about what you should do, what you should tell your family, when you learned that your wife is dead. You go to sleep. You sleep on a bed of nails, the first thing you feel in the cycle of grief. How did this happen? Because love was transformed into torture. And every single day that goes on from now on will be lived in a different world than the one you experienced before. And you will go into this world, greeting it with violent words, because you know when you lost me forever, the world would no longer be the world. The world is drenched in what makes it forget everything it was made for.
113. When the violence and the anger go away, all that's left is one simple thing: resentment and death. There is something so mournful, you will only find it when you listen closely, when you stop and forget about what you've lost. We create true art when we ourselves are broken. I was pacing across the floor of my apartment, and I did not believe I could go through another year. I felt like I was suffocating in the worst way. When love is all we have, when the borders of our countries are broken and hatred flows out from these borders, when every day that goes by is nothing but the anxiety that we dread in forgetting the other more, when our foreign city burns away, we will walk towards that city hand in hand, long after we have passed away. Through the alleyways of a broken city, you haven't seen anything yet but a war about to be unleashed. The desperate shell, where there are no voices, just darkness pouring over the slums, and rage against the thief masquerading in the night, where we say goodbye to everything that we loved about the natural world. 114. There are moments when you think the world will slow down, but the world never does, until our body is ashes, and it is blown apart by the wind like the unresisting air, because even our names will be forgotten in time. Our lifetimes are full of danger and wrath, but none of it compares to what is inside my soul. You left me for dead. You threw away the shovel, but I clawed through the dirt and came back to find you, and you knew when you saw me that the time had certainly come for all fate to be fulfilled. Once I was drowning in my own tears from the memories of being alone at night after I learned my wife had died. Now I've come to challenge you. You and I hear a shotgun blast, and then we know the pain won't last. Screams throughout the city. Nothing can stop us from surviving. My words will be like violence, but behind my bars, we are isolated. There is truth you never understood. There is violent music, as poetic as it is profane, as deadly as it desires to live. Harmony walks all the places you were afraid to walk. As much truth in English as there was in Afrikaans, as much truth in Afrikaans as there was in Zulu. There is much violence in my English words as any other language I might have spoken. When words and poetry flow through me like bombs, when I never stop speaking, the love inside her soul has turned to anger now. You will hear the silent feet of children in Pretoria and Chicago. These feet walking down the cobbled streets will echo my name. 115. At the end of the world, everyone you kicked and pushed down with your feet ascended up to challenge you, and these people were given a crown and a kingdom, and you fell down to the bottom and broke both your legs, and no one was there to help you ever again, and then hell opened wide, and you remembered all the times you avoided eye contact with us. I have no political affiliation. I am not left or right. I have become something more than black or white. I felt the blood pulse out of my shoulder when I learned that Harmony had been shot. I felt all political affiliation leave me when I learned that we were all human. I say hello to the criminals on the street corner, and then I walk past them and don't say another word. And words flow from me like the movements of a dance whenever I pick up my pen, whenever I record my voice. I will tell her story. We are going 80 miles per hour down the freeway, and we know we will never stop. Yesterday I was in her arms. Today I am in the slums of Chicago. We are still at war with the world. We hear the sad violin in the faces of strangers. We hear the police cars roaring. We hear depth in every syllable. We hear death in every moment when we think about the future. Here's another eulogy for the world that would never listen. Here's another eulogy for the world that took a drink of its own poverty and then died. It drowned in its own lack of inhibition. It lamented its own routine. It marched on until the end, and then we read about it years later. How can you even live with yourself in a world this broken? How can you not shout words of liberty from the roof of every building you step on. How can your pen ever stop moving? And why did they not listen to a single word you were saying? I sit in front of the McDonald's with the last bit of cash I just spent, the last bit of cash left in my bank account. And I know I will never hold a job again. After how devastated I was, we hear the crowds roaring. We hear them begging for the next action to happen. Their entertainment will be the death of the world, and they have seen this film 100 times. As the sirens soar through the street, we run away, and then I find myself home, underneath the bridge, where I light a fire in the trash bin, and then wait for the last of my time to expire, because I know at this rate I will not survive any of this. And somewhere in the distance, I hear a voice crying out, "Unredeemable." And it was speaking to the world. And then I paced through the city as if it was my bedroom floor.
116. As I drift off to sleep, I lay down at peace, because an angel watches over me. As we grow older, we forget our dreams, but the stars from those dreams light my path. I think your stars cross my stars. I think your angels are so close to my angels, and that my oceans meet your oceans, and the network of the spirits, we are in union.
117. I sit in my room, feeling the familiar and unwelcome dullness fall over the world. When I used to be excited, now there is indifference. Where there used to be a deep ocean, there is now a shallow pool. We no longer dive into the water because our feet always hit the bottom. I drift with my mind and approach places I never will see in this life. There are desperate souls in this life. There are questions that will never be answered or even acknowledged. How years later I know I will write about this simple experience and contemplate it during the time I am no longer bored out of my mind, when I have a job and a wife and several beautiful children, and we pass our experiences down 100 generations. You are my joy defined. You are the one I will hold so close to me. In the fears we had so long ago, they all will melt away and float forever. Somewhere we can never reach them. Building our new life together, we know the world will from now on forget its own dysfunction. How none of this ever works. The pieces we tried to put together would never fit together. How we were always in the wrong place at the wrong time. How all luck had run out. And as the rain pours outside, I come in to greet you with 1,000 kisses and fall asleep with you into pure amnesia, forgetting the anxiety of the past.
118. I want to get myself so far away from here. I want to put myself out to sea. Anywhere as far as I can go is fine. If you're screaming out my name, I won't hear you in the dark. No, you won't ever hold me again. I have fallen into poverty. We've fallen so very far. We've eaten up your lies like gasoline. You light the match, and soon after, we are dead. You light the match, and you burn our insides out. Every screen we look at shows us a country that longs to be overthrown. Anywhere away from here we go is fine. I'm screaming out for revolution. You can't see me in the black. No, you won't ever notice me again. You are blinded by your heresy.
119. We've been told this too many times. We're not going anywhere. Here in the dark, we waste our lives, but we don't care. There is no more music. There is no more expression. Here in the dark, we waste our lives. We won't leave our cell. Part of me isn't sure what to think. The other part of me is broken. Can you reconcile the truth in my stars while they are falling from my skies? We've been separated, locked in a cell. We aren't going anywhere. Here in the dark, our sickness grows. But we won't care. There is no more music. There is no more expression. Here in the dark, we waste our lives. We won't leave our cell. 120. We're finding our way home. We're drowning in our past memories that we couldn't forget if we tried. We're stuck in the valley of the shadow of regret, and I am in a permanent state of mind. I know you feel it. I know you'll be there when my eyes close before our last night on earth ends. 121. Harmony wakes me up to see how beautiful the stars are in the middle of the night. 122. There is a shadow across the bedroom floor, where once was blinding sunlight, silence and nothing more. There is a storm inside my heart. 123. Don't you see me standing here? Don't you hear me scream? I know you'll be there in the end. I know my heart is broken. I feel like I'm dying. I believe I'm drowning. I know you'll be there in the end. I know my heart is broken. 124. We came a long way to get here tonight. While the universe stands still, frozen in ice, Harmony wears the stars on her skin. I've been waiting forever for this to begin. I'll take you far away from here.
I can feel your heartbeat. Let me stay at your side, falling out of place. Hold your heart, your soul. Let go of the world you've known. Life is waiting on the other side. Here, by your side, I will never leave. And you'll have love you've never known. We are free. We've been redeemed. Everyone stands still. Everyone is stuck. I feel your love on every part of my soul. I've been waiting forever.
125. Tomorrow morning, I'll hang my head. Before I walk beside the shadows, tired of these tantalizing motions that show me everything beautiful in a single moment. 126. I dream about falling so deep, and I never reach the bottom of the oceans. And as I sink, I admire the beauty of the descent into the blue, and then into sheer darkness, where there is nothing left but pure motionlessness, because there will be no more expression. 127. Walking through the empty city, streets singing, humming about her ocean eyes. Life grips us and takes us away, and we fall through the many-colored sky, where you know the person that will come to save you will never be me, where you know the person that kisses our children goodnight will never be me, where you know the dreams we share cast their shadow on an even darker world, and this world lightens up from the shadows that we cast, because in comparison, we are brighter than the sun shining, and we know our truth is offensive to the world, and we know I had a dream. We were sitting on the edge of the waterfront. We were drinking and making fun of all the people who thought they could bring us down. 1,000 times, over and again. The world will rise and greet the fires and be consumed, be altered, and then be totally transformed. And then the world will be inebriated by the breath of its own evaporation. And then the world will stand and then run desperately away and fall into the arms of those who loved it, but no longer loved it, because the world had an identity crisis and didn't realize why it was here and didn't realize what it needed to do a way out of its own callous shell. And I have scars that have not healed, but the light hides them. I fell in love with her deep blue eyes. They stood alone in mystery, and her heart was pure and lovely. But because the world didn't understand it, it left her all alone. And as she waited for the world to reject her, Harmony wrote a powerful love letter to the world, saying no matter how drunk it became, or how many times it wanted to see other people, that she would always be a loyal lover. But the world was violent to her, and she ran into my arms, where we promised each other the same things, but kept the promise and never broke it, until the world came back to destroy her. And this sadness grew, and the world moved on from the anger it had against Harmony, because Harmony was gone from the world for several hundred years, and the world descended into a fit of racism, inequality, and crippling poverty. And we stood afar off and wept for the world, for what was about to happen to it. 128. We became bored of the screens and the television and instead wanted to create a world we could live in and thrive in. We became bored of the tears that came consistently through the years because we were beyond broken. Our dead-end lives were nearing the end of the line. My birds in the desperate dark of the sea wanted to leave and could not fly high enough, but eventually your stars came a little closer and reached down and let my birds land, where they lived forever, in a land of vibrancy and truth and aspiration. 129. When we lay down at night, we are on the total opposite ends of the world. We never looked up at the same moon. When I see the sun, you see the stars. When I see the birds fly, you see the cars. When I feel the freedom, you see the bars.
When I reach out for your hand, it never reaches across the world.
When I reach out for truth, you hear nothing but poetic lies. When I dream about you after you're gone, we no longer see any distinction between any of us because of our skin color.
I have hope you fall after me. 130. This indifference, this one single moment where hate is louder than love. Prejudice that will not be annihilated with the firmest anger. 131. We're broken, and we are leaving. Goodbye until the end of days.
132. There is a violinist on the street corner playing tunes of love that will be forgotten.
The staccato, and then the crescendo that grows and diminishes, demonstrating that our emotions are bursting out of us, and then they will be silent and never heard again.
133. The rhythm of the music which we feel in our hearts, but never hear outside of us.
134. Bliss. She wanted a hand to hold, guiding her away from slavery. When she resists, they point the gun at her forehead. She forgets her strength to fight. The bringer of light now gone so far away. When we stare at the walls of the prison, her skin so fragile, it bursts when it is pricked. When the only world she knows is one of suffering beyond comprehension, when her crystal soul is shattered, when the spreading fires are extinguished, when we need education and to understand the fallen state of ourselves, the light is defined by the darkness. The flares that light us a path far from here spark for a moment and are extinguished, are buried, and then the world is blind. 135. Father, no one can hear her. She is lamenting the life taken away from a family that loved her. Her father bled out on the hospital floor. Her brother died trying to stop them from taking her. Son, she's embalmed in a world of wild, unendurable, physical pain. She won't cry anymore. Holy Spirit, the breath of life is fading from her nostrils, while you and I do nothing because we flow through the world like water with no agency over our own actions, with no hope for those who are blind. In another world, she wears a crown. In another world, bliss has violently flown away. 136. I want you to understand what she was feeling. She was suffocating in the depths of a vast and terrifying ocean where she would never be able to fight again. Her life was over. And she finally sank to the bottom and lived there for the rest of her life, where she could not feel the warmth of the sunlight approaching at all, where all she could feel was the cold indifference to despair, where the world had forgotten about her. She had no strength, she had no emotion, she only felt pain and became so numb to it that she would not feel anything at all, ever again.
137. In the depth of a routine that I found myself in every day, in the moments where we stand before the unapproachable light, we spill all of our truth, all over the bathroom floor. Of our souls, like beer, we spill all our pain, all over the hospital parking lot like blood. And no one will ever understand this desperation. No one will understand our need for connection to others because we do not know how to even approach another person with the truth that we understand but cannot express. When you cannot promise to hold on and never let go, because you know you will let go. I was watching Harmonie's speech on the television about fighting against sex trafficking the day that she was killed. I was feeling this exasperating sorrow. I was drowning in my desperation, and then was submerged, and the water of this desperation filled my lungs until I knew they would never breathe again. I was feeling extreme loneliness when I knew that the truth in my soul would go away when you say you will always stand by my side, but you have left me, and you never come back to me. And there is no world on this side or that side of eternity where the just are the ones who are wearing crowns. There is no melody I listen to that does not tell me to scream out the words. There is no picture too ugly for me to paint a portrait of. There is no world where redemption is unheard of and not dreamt about day and night. There is no world where redemption is actualized and is actually attained. There is no orchestra that is unwilling to champion the melodies Harmonie would gladly hum back to the rest of the world in her speeches. There is no truth you will not find in any single one of these things by simply asking for the truth and receiving it. There is no drink strong enough to wash away the pain, because the pain is underneath my soul, and alcohol does not seep through, because nothing can penetrate the upper layer of my soul. There is no drug with the power to make me desire anything else than to reconcile us to the world. If you look hard enough, you can hear the voice of God in the spirits of the trees. If you listen closely enough, you can see the desperate souls in the woods, searching for a home they may never find by using their own strength. They say, I've fallen so far away. But today we all realize that none of us understand anything about anything, except what is underneath our skin and underneath our very souls. And I have memories of being alone in the world, walking through the forest of it, finding myself underneath the bridge and the bottom of the tent is leaking, and we are voicing our dissension to the deer that are passing by, because we have fallen so far away from any connection with people. and I sleep in the tent as it fills with water and dream about the places I went in my life before I met Harmonie, and dream about the risks I took in my youth, and the orchestra plays music, the soundtrack of our lives. I cannot find you in the depth of this world. I run after you, but you are never reachable. I dream of finding the truth in your eyes. I dream of overcoming the pain I felt in my youth. I follow you across the train tracks, but you are so ambivalent. My heart cannot go on much longer. I have descended into the last and worst state of grief. I have become blinded by my dysfunction. Will never see a doctor again. Will never live a simple life. Will always grow closer to the moments where I know. I held back my punches. I never unleashed my wrath upon the darkness. I know you feel joy when you realize that the darkness that you hold so close to you will burst with life when it touches your dreary heart, because it will realize what it had done to your heart and then stop being dark and will embrace the lovely things of this world.
138. We became so drawn to each other, even when we were on opposite sides of the world. We became so united. We became so perfectly beautiful together that love brought us a peace the world would not imbibe, and would soon forget when the voices around were so loud that they would never listen. I will never stop remembering the way I feel right now, the way you make me feel. We need to forget about all the superficial things that divide us. We need to drive a stake into the heart of our own despair in the moment when we have so much hope, but often ignore it because we do not understand what we truly have. We need to be drawn together in love for all things beautiful. We need to be drawn together in our infatuation with the years that are growing cold, because the coldness stings our hearts and makes them fall in love with the warmth that is remaining in our hearts until our hearts freeze up and stop, and are not awakened for another 100 years, and are dazzled by the rays of light when the winter finally ends, and the summer breaks through the trees.
139. My flag, my nation, life, liberty, and the pursuit of death. Her deep blue eyes, her truth, the consequence of falling. The consequence of breathing so deeply that your ribs begin to ache like teeth. The aftermath of a life lived in such insatiable truth. For the very first time, we feel love as we fall into its ocean, and we are very unprepared for love, but let it ravish us the same. We were very unprepared for the lives we knew we had to live separated, and I was 17 when I met you. I was diving into the depths. My iron heart came unglued. I felt like I was swimming in a deep, unfathomable ocean where for the first of countless times we would suffocate and then come alive. And then we would wander the streets of several cities where we knew we would eventually watch them burn to the ground after the riots, crawling up and down the once familiar and once lonesome streets. 140. As life turned like a carousel, we found ourselves in love with the motion of it as the world moved around us. We stood still, and we gazed at the passing lights as in a dream. I held the hand of our son and led him to the carousel of life, where I knew he would reach out his arms for truth, for love, in celebration, in sorrow, and the understanding of sorrow, in moving and never stopping. 141. Sometimes I feel not enough people can see my paintings. Sometimes I feel bursting with so much passion, enough to move the world. But then you are with me in the quiet room, and I show you everything I have painted, and I am gratified and falling into truth and the deepest fulfillment. He would rather read passionate words to me and me alone than to have 27 million read your dull words and fall in love with words written without passion. It is better to be hated for being you than to be loved for being fake. And you wrote words that only I would read, and they reached into my heart and never left for the rest of my life. 142. The glory and the beauty of our simple love. We walked together through the world while spilling all our love, sharing all our truth, falling across the tables like waters. I see you walking by, and I feel alienated from everyone. I see you judging who I am, but you haven't met me. I feel time clawing down on the short remaining days of our lives. I feel so many words that need to be spoken and need to be said before I can tell you why we are suffering. And we have the greatest anger growing inside our hearts that we've ever felt. We have the greatest hatred for all of the darkness binding us. 143. Harmonie, walking through the dirty streets and breathing in the smog. The noise of the bustling people, the phases of the moon, the shadows over our world that follow us whichever direction we walk.
I dream of the call to come together, which we hear in the corner of the classrooms. The lecture, we will never stand united. We will never strive for freedom. South Africa is not our land. The cycle of every ordeal in which the immediate world is more messed up with each day that goes by. How we are far from education and learning the language of the other. We walk together through a world that has forgotten our truth, that has dug its claws into the heart of the city. I have never known any other home but KZN. I have never truly wanted another home. I was born here, and I will die here. The loneliness of the road we traverse down and are lost on, when we forget that we don't know where we are going. When we dive into the night before our fearsome journey is ended, before we lie at the stern of the ship, fallen cold and dead. Come and read these words before the world becomes consumed in its own misfortune.
144. When we all fall apart, the pieces scatter to the ends of the earth. When you have forgotten about the taste of humanity that was remaining in me, you fall down into the avenues of wasted years. The marching crowds through the cities where we look out from the top of a building we climbed and shout words of violence, and shout words of echoing degeneracy, and the voices shout back at us in an even uglier tone. And then we fall far from the top of the building, from the rocks they have thrown at us. And then we hit the ground hard and are carried away to a place where it is better to be lost than to be found. 145. You are the never-ending dream I have, in which I fall and become so close to feeling hopeful. You are the always present shadow across the hospital floor, where our worlds fall apart, but no other worlds are slain. 146. As long as I can show you the portrait of the world, and you see those in the streets starving, and those who are as real as I am, who have a peace within their souls, and are ready to sleep forever. I miss the dreams of silent and beautiful things. I miss the memories, mementos, reminders that we are all still alive in the same room. 147. In my apartment, so much noise from the party up the stairs. And I have been swallowed by loneliness and bliss of times long gone. I dream all night about her sky blue eyes. I toss and turn. I sink and yearn for the emancipation I will never feel. When we are lectured by the ones who are persecuting us, when we are living in a world where everyone is blinded from the explosion of the H-bomb, and they were simply sitting in traffic, waiting to get home and to face the next day. But nothing could have shielded their eyes from what was caving in on them. The chaos that is in the world as we pack our bags and we leave and we never return to our old home. And then the skies turn gray, and then the black, and the tornado destroys our old home. And we crave a different world than the one we've always known. We crave a more temperate love than the one we've always inhaled. We have learned to shy away from those who take extreme sides or who are so fixed on their opinions that they cannot see the life through the eyes of the ones on the other side of the room. 148. We continue to live. We continue to thrive. We have risen out of the slums and into your dreams. We have risen out of the mundane and into the bright and glorious world. We have just arrived in the new city and set up our tent, and we are not at all ready to leave. We are walking through the streets of the city. We are dusting off the salt from our boots when you do not accept us or even understand us. 149. Addicted to the sound of the birds and the breath of the stars, the light that comes from the stars inebriates this room. Frees all the world. The birds land on the stars, and they guide us to the stars, and we fall in love with the sensations that intoxicate us. 150. I will be so empowered by the words she spoke that she will be my voice. She will be my message that is only just now being shared with the rest of the world. 151. We sing anthems in the pitch-black night. We have forgotten the words that were so close to our hearts in our youth. They spoke to us, words of human equality. Love has been lost in the deep black night, and we never chased after that love. Truth had been spoken. Truth was never recovered when I lost harmony in that night as well. When we floated through the avenues of a life lived with nothing left to lose. We walked out the front door of our lives and dreamed about acquiring riches and not living on the streets, but we became the kings and queens of the slums. We became the rulers of the world of the disenfranchised.
152. We wander through the forests. We walked together in places that came alive, but only in our minds.
153. The falling leaves. Autumn has come, and I do not know where the summer has gone. I do not know good health and good life because they are such a distant fantasy. I walk the streets of the suburbs, the town run down. Trash littering all up and down the streets, where I wish I could feel you close against my arm. Where I dive without question into doubt, and the spirit of the fall is a memory, a feeling that cannot ever leave me, because you were once so close to me, and we held each other so close. The nations are divided. We walk all different roads, and none of them arrive at the same destination. But none of the paths lead out of hell. 154. Listen to me from outside the shell of your car, where you sit at the gas station. I have just enough money to fill up my tank and I drive away. Ditch my car and walk alone as the cold does not subside, as the trees are not shielding the darkness from my face. We dream of the different lives we could have lived. 155. As I continue walking down the dead-end street, I let the night encompass me in its shroud. As I remember the things that were so warm, I shiver in this cold and bring my hands back to the burning trash container and warm up my fingers, and I speak to no one but the frigid air, and I listen to no one but the spirit of the passing time. I hear no one walking in the abode of loneliness.
CD number 4.
156. We were on the flight together. Your hand on my thigh, our hearts in the clouds, our lives on the line, our souls were enclosed, our war we waged together. And we know the world has grown so small, and the world is the world.
Our emotions told us that as we became lost, we swallowed our doubts. We no longer were in love with old dreams. We were estranged from the towns we were most familiar with. The people we used to know would look at us and not recognize us at all.
I feel your touch. I feel the rhythm, the movement of the songs, the lull voices, the warm embrace, the place where we find and hold all inspiration, the place where we dig so deep into our dirt that we know we will never be clean again. We do not move because of logic. We move because of what we feel. We burn with unfathomable passions. We write down what we feel and then remember what we are feeling.
157. The shock wave that falls over us when we realize with utter abandon how fragile the beauty is. How you could speak its name and it would break, and the pieces would be shattered all across the world. And you would never be able to find any of these pieces ever again, because the pieces form an image unlike any painting I've ever seen or wanted to paint myself. What if the only life you've known was a nightmare? What would you do if time was uncontrollably moving toward a nightmare that you would never be prepared for? If the warm embraces you feel would never be felt again? Where there is art, there is truth. There is something that alerts the world in the most fundamental way. There is destiny fulfilled and life completed and found its source.
158. I wrote a poem about the first time we met, the reconciliation of the last broken piece of heaven, before it falls into its abyss. I wrote a poem about how my lips press against yours, and how you feel absolutely conformed to beauty, as we transition from one moment of joy to another moment of exhilaration to the soaring heights of the stars. You feel the words flow like water across the pages of a life we dreamed of living together. You feel the words written summon more joy than you ever thought could exist. You feel the vampire nation become human once again and sing in the joy of its own salvation, and all of your enemies bow before your feet. We will understand truths scholars will never understand. We will understand truths the politicians will never experience. Our activism spills our lives across the floor of the National Assembly.
159. Irrational, pure, and true love. I feel love drawing me toward the light. I feel love calling me in this dark night. Beside me, with me, inside me. holding me so close. The wind that clutters in through our bedroom door, like the voices of the morning breeze, lamenting each passing day that draws us further away from the other.
You look into the night and breathe. From the abandoned parking lot to the unfinished bridges in KZN, to the life we call for, to the feeling of fulfillment and lacking nothing. There is joy flooding all of these things. There is life inhabiting all of these things. The dead nation comes alive and walks the streets wondering what had happened while it had fallen asleep. It wondered why the world had changed so much, and then realized that someone had possessed its own body and done horrible things. And then the nation spent its entire life seeking reconciliation and never found it.
160. All sense of rationality is gone. In a world where we don't reach across the aisle, we don't reach anywhere at all. We forget the name of the one we loved more than anything, and we have forgotten all about the experience. All of our dreams lead to unanswered questions, because these questions could never be answered, even if we tried to answer them between now and the end of all time.
The things we long to experience together will only be experienced apart. The dreams we long to be closer than they would ever be have slipped so far away from our hands that they have no knowledge of our hands, or what they can do, or what they are even for, because hands were meant to hold. Love was meant to thrive.
161. When the entire world forgets that you exist, follow me into the future.
162. My criminal lover, Leafy, the only exciting lover that came into my life. How I can break off with the one I was never in love with and fall after you. Feeling fulfilled, always loved. And I'm looking forward to spending the rest of my life with you.
163. I walked through the graveyard and contemplated the lives that had gone before. 164. We are afraid of being rejected by the ones that are closest to us. We have forfeited a long and comfortable life. We have grown so emotional toward the things that are only temporary and which we cannot hold for even a single instant before it vanishes. 165. I started painting the portraits on the screen. Commission work, a new way of art that portrays the details of what I am feeling in a single image. 166. We hear the music that emboldens us to march through the streets, with our empty hearts that can be filled with anything. 167. Harmonie's beautiful blue and fathomless, stirring eyes are what I gazed into with my hands on her face, with the comfort of home and joy I found with her, with the worlds that are envisioned when I look at her. With the passing years, we will give new meaning to every day of the year, because we will spend these days together. The hue of the sky, like the same depth in her eyes. The warmth of the oceans, like the peace found in her embrace. The brazen lies we hear every evening constitute a declaration of ignorance. While we stand by the power lines during the load shedding, shaking in disbelief that both of us are still alive, and that the chaos of the converging worlds brought us here, to a moment where we can lie down together and look at the trees and then the power lines, and see the stars and distant worlds shining above. We lose our minds when we fall in love. We lose our lives eventually, so I will lose everything I have and pass it on to you. I came home to her, where within the world of so much turmoil, there is peace in a quiet room. There is joy when we can lie down alone and dream together. And let the TV light guide us to sleep. And let the unhinged anthems of nations guide us into a world where the nations do not exist in their current form. We are guided by little miracles into lands where we are no longer stranded, into a comfortable life where we will not be standing in the middle of Durban with no phone and no wallet and no plane ticket home.
168. So many years ago, we were crawling out of our own fears and becoming the persons we always wanted to be, with no regrets, with no pain, and no despair.
169. I struggle to put to words what is so close inside my soul, what could never be understood by any human person, living or dead. 170. Every time the sun rises, it draws us closer to our promised and uncertain future. Every time I call your name, it brings us closer to our future together. When you will hold me and never let go, when words take a tangible form that can be felt like skin against skin, when all I want to do is express what I feel and never stop expressing these same truths, when music is the motion that forever underlines our lives and makes us move forward in motion, when we look inside ourselves and see immovable truth and such depth that we could stare at it forever and never stop learning more about it. 171. When no one has embraced the melodies that we understand, we will become closer to each other in the fact that we are the only two people in the world that no one understands. 172. With our hearts open wide, we offer all we have to a world that has forsaken us. With our minds willing to learn anything that exudes truth, is real and graspable, we fall after you. 173. We crave miracles in a world that no longer believes, and people lost their minds when one actually happened. 174. We lie in separate rooms. The darkness seeps through into these rooms, where we wait for the end of all time. 175. The cruelty of the passing time, when we are all still, and always will be uncertain of our chances of obtaining a normal life together. 176. Counting down the days until we are understood by anyone, or even listened to. 177. I feel desperate to express the truth inside my soul. 178. I am reaching out and feeling your skin. I am reaching out and touching your soul. And I say all the words I was too afraid to share with anyone else. 179. I warm my hands in front of the fire. I let the warmth take me over, and I dream that life was not like this, that just as the world was about to turn against you, it stopped and wondered what it was doing, or why it wanted to, and never persecuted you again. And I dreamt that people listened to the words of the poets and those of the artists, and that these words transformed the nation into one with no violence, no poverty, and no despair. And that we weren't slowly losing our homes without compensation, losing the things we held so close to us, with no regard for what they were or how valuable they were to us.
180. You will write our story and tell the world every detail of the emotions it thought were meaningless.
181. As the night became longer, we started counting the seconds. As the fear became unbearable, we started feeling so numb and unable to feel anything again. 182. Life without the turmoil of every day. When we are stranded in the middle of nowhere, we will still walk whatever direction, hoping to find each other eventually, if we walk far enough. 183. After we wait, we give up. After sighing comes exasperation. After music comes silence. After gunshots in the city, there are vain sirens. During lonely nights, we are blind. The whole world is enclosed in a single soul. The whole world burns when a soul burns. The places your lips have kissed my skin still burn. Your hands trail across my body, fingers leaving scorch marks everywhere they touch. My body aches for more. 184. Harmonie's eyes like portals into a lonely world. Her hair like a shroud that covers the darkness and traps it so that it never leaves and never tempts us again. Her warmth like celebration of coming home, to a home that would never forsake us. Her lips sweet as honey, raging against the unstoppable embrace of death.
185. With a kiss, I die, and fall down into the echoing halls of the forgotten, and am never remembered, except in the libraries of those who have believed in love. Some may come to those shelves and find our book, and when they read it from cover to cover, they will know how to save the world from certain disaster, if only they have the courage to open it. 186. I'm here, you're there. My heart aches, yours breaks. We're spinning in this circle each day over and over. It's the same thing. It doesn't change. We want change.
I want you to feel so completely free from this cycle that when you take my hand, you will certainly be able to grasp it and follow me step by step into a life where we experience not only truth, but also the deepest fulfillment. And when we fall deeper into the thriving sea of the love we found together, we never reach the bottom.
187. With each night that passes, I lie down and let it vanish, and when it is gone, I greet the new day, with all the bruises, scrapes, and cuts that come with the new months, and I don't complain. I just live, and shut the part of my brain off that cares if it is cut, or if it is left open for the rest of the world to see, because I am naked with my words, more than I could ever be naked with my body. I have more freedom when I am writing than I will have anywhere else in the world. Typing these words that will be read all over the world as we wait for the world to get bored of its routine, we are exhausted. And then we dream and let more years pass until the world ignores us and never hears anything we are saying, until we demonstrate that no one in the world has greater love than us. 188. The days when the world goes quiet, because there is no more dissonance, because the world gave up on trying to write a beautiful symphony, and all it could produce were clanging noises and discordance. When your tied tongue is loosened, it breaks through the silence and sings beautiful words that the world had never heard before, but had been dreaming of hearing. And then the world learns your song and plays it as a symphony everywhere. 189. When we forget so many words and forget everything that we ever learned in school, and unlearn language and learn a new language, and forget the people we lived with before, and live in an entirely new city where we write love letters about the beauty of the world and finding yourself and becoming someone you always wanted to become your entire life, but were not brave enough to admit these truths to yourself.
190. Into the dark we fall, and I fall after you. We are bitterly weeping for the loss of the nation of light, when we have descended so far into the empire of the shadows that we will never go up to where we can barely see the light breaking through the surface of the chilling water. 191. Love covers us like dew in the morning. 192. We lose our hope in a world where hope is derided because we are not brave enough to stand out from the crowd and to fight for a future we are not sure we will ever find, where hatred is louder than love, where death is easier than life.
193. My stars touch your birds, and your birds carry my stars on their wings on their journey to a universe where they never have to worry about shining over a broken world. 194. I want you, in desperate moments, to be here, and not only to understand, but to experience the world through my eyes and the eyes of all. 195. You feel the days pass, again, and the world passes away like time is lapsing. 196. The mountains where we are alive and feel the same things as countless souls that traversed here before us. 197. I held you so close and didn't let go and held on to this moment for the rest of my days. 198. When we inhale, we take in every breath slowly.
199. When fear is struck in our hearts and we fall away from the image of God, we rejoice in the face of the crowds who call for division and death. We are caught up in the moments when we know we could become anything and write our story in the depth of the winter when everything is frozen over, and we cannot move our fingers quickly enough to write. When we are buried in our own tears because we drowned in them. When the nation falls in on itself from inhaling a little bit too much despair. When we learn to resist the panic. When every year that passes is a marathon of doubts, one after another, and the hope we had is lost on its way home to us and never finds us. When we are broken and cannot find the instructions to put ourselves back together. When Harmonie sings to me, and I hear her overwhelming, beautiful, and lamenting voice. She is more American than me. She is more addicted to the light of freedom of speech. She is more enthralled with living a simple life. When our families abandon us, there will be nowhere else to turn. When all of our things are on the street, we cannot carry them. When we fear for our very lives, and we are threatened by the burning rage of a world that never understood us. When we wait in the moonlight for the stars to disappear so that the world is completely dark and we can sleep and leave this world and travel to a world we will only experience in our dreams, where we are still loved and understood. When all we need is one more person to listen before the whole world hears and turns the other direction from which it was walking. And we no longer want to live forever, at least not in this world. We do not understand what is broken within our world. We do not know how to describe it to others, so we lock the doors on the rooms of our own hearts and fight against the chains they shackle us with. But we are never able to leave the room. We are never able to walk so far away that we will never be found again by our enemies. I have so many thoughts I cannot explain. I have so much truth I cannot convince you of. I have so much cruelty, which I don't believe is real. 200. Fading like the light of the stars, dying like the fate of those lost in the darkness of warmth. When the bombs blow off the shell, creating craters in the earth, within our hearts, there used to be joy. When we would never be able to express what we were feeling because it was too painful to speak. Calluses on our hands, bruises on our torsos, stripes across our backs. Cruelty, animosity, and we run away from the masters of slaves. Having so much passion that the world would never talk about it. Having so much love, the world would never experience it. Having so much truth, the world would destroy you. Craving revolution so much, the world started a crusade against you. Being so loud and upfront with all of this, that the world tried to suppress you, and when the world tried to push you down, you only pushed back with your words. You knew how short your life would be. Together we would be laughing about the world and how we knew it would treat us. Racism is beyond absurdity. Depth we fell so far into that we would never have hope of returning to the state we were in before. With just a single touch, we felt it. We understood each other. We were at odds with the world. Whether you are near or far, I believe my love covers these oceans. Feelings of warmth and security would flood our hearts. A world without anxiety, a future filled with glory, where the trees reach out for love, like when I reach out for your hand and you take it. When you show me the beauty in the world, I follow and fall more deeply in love with you. When I kiss you, all I can think about is the difference between heaven and mortality, and how I wish it will never end when we go to new and exciting places. I realize that anywhere with you is my favorite place in the world. When I am far from you, I want to be closer, and when we're in the same room, I want to be closer, and when our skin is touching, I want to be closer. I cherish your breath more than wine, and more than gold, more than life, and more than the scarce warmth and the coldness of winter. I cannot imagine my life without you. You are kind, you are loving and pure, and I would never need to tell you these things. 201. When your heart was broken, I stitched it back together with my own hands, and they were covered in your blood, and then I felt you breathing across my neck, and then I heard you sleeping, and then I found you in your dreams, and spoke to you, and loved you in those dreams, until you would never forget the life we lived in our dreams, and then you woke up. You would write about this experience forever until the world would greet you again with all its unwelcoming glances. But you knew it wasn't your world that was rejecting you. We could live as if the world was foreign to us, as if it was never familiar or friendly, as if we were starving to find a world where we could thrive in the streets of the cities, in which we would hear the whimpering voices of people suffering long in the shadows, of people dreaming of a world like the one we dreamed about. And we led them out of the dull world with us, and we built a nation, and this nation led to a kingdom, and this kingdom to a world without end. 202. The birds outside are conversing. They are telling each other stories we never understood, about the free and open sky, and those stars of yours that they land on and find peace with, but which I would never understand. 203. With you and me, everything is perfect. 204. You hear my truth when I whisper it deep into your ears. and your whole self is exonerated. 205. We have held each other so close, and we will never, even when time expires, willingly forget about each other. 206. The danger of love is that it never gives up, never gives in, never lets go of you, finds you where you are in the shadows, and draws you into the light. Love is so incredibly dangerous that the crusade against it never ends until the forces of the Dark Lord are overthrown, until the light of morning pierces in through the castle, until my truth spills into the hearts of all those who not long ago were at war with us, until you know the dreams we have are the anthems of our lives that must be understood and inhaled into the minds of the ones who were forgetting about their loved ones.
207. South Africa, my first home, where I will never belong, but where I will always rage against the time that wastes away our lives, until we have no way to hold on to anything. The dream of the poet, the ecstasy of the poet who became a dreamer. The despair that each moment brings inside the prison, where we are afraid of being carried away one last time. The fear of the edge of the knife, the fear of what is inside the soul that drives them to use the knife when we are standing, as souls separated and desperate to understand, and if only we could find each other, we would escape from the prison together. We would destroy the hunger of those fires that devour everything in the forest we used to call home. We would fall so deeply in love that we would never want to not be in love ever again.
You would feel peace deep inside your bones, where for a moment you wait for the fear to pass, for the riots in the street to clear, for the riot police to leave, and you walk the streets that are now empty with the glass and broken Molotov cocktails all over the ground, broken everywhere, and you walk these streets until you come to your old home, and you find it burning, and then you watch the news and see everyone talking about your death and that you were pregnant when you died. But violence knows no bounds, and that when you died, South Africa did not mourn or weep, but turned the other way and never repented and continued on its course.
And then I walked across the oceans, and I saw my Leafy in a boxcar, traveling to another city, weeping, and losing my picture as the wind blew it away, and it was never seen by anyone again. And then my Leafy walked for miles, until he was greeted by the cold winter, where he rested and never rose up. I was sitting under the tree, in my youth, and I was writing in a journal all of my thoughts. In my youth, I was listening closely to the spirit between the light and the expanse of the sky. I was staring at the sky, and I was waiting for someone to speak words that would describe what I was feeling. I was waiting for the world to find grace, while it was free falling away from it. I was wanting to sing joyfully and triumphantly about the things that I had experienced in such a way that every living person in the world would understand them.
Joseph Leo Hickey lives in Virginia. He is the author of 11 other poetry books, including Baptism of Apathy, Unity, Love Poems at the End of Our Lives, Leafy, The Last Poem, Purity Redeemed, The Penultimate Poems, The Revenant, I Know Nothing But Miracles, Walt Whitman Speaks to the Modern World, True Daughter of the Soil, and There's a Serenity in the Dark. He is currently 28 years old. His YouTube channel is All the Stars Are Dead. He can be reached at joseph@melodiumhouse.com. Visual art by Michael Thompson. Music by Joseph Leo Hickey and Maria Grigorieva. Eris P. as Harmonie. Johnny Unitas as Leafy. Narrated by Joseph Leo Hickey. Thank you for listening.